And now it's time for 33.3 News with your host, Trey Harris.
Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
When we are successful, and we will be.
Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before, of old, ordained to this condemnation.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of 33.3 News. My name is Trey Harris, and I just want to thank you all for joining me on today's episode. So, we got a lot to talk about, but first, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come over here because I got to say I'm really bothered about what happened on the last show we did. You know, we talked about a lot of this emoji stuff, and I got to be honest with you guys. The reason I'm bothered is because the whole point of this show was I saw a bunch of people just taking, somebody would say something about it, be it an emoji or some form of children's game, and they would be like, this is evil and this is why, and they would give like these crazy sporadic reasons that had absolutely nothing to do with Scripture and everything to do with coincidence, and people would just run with it like it was truth, and they'd stop. They're like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to, nobody in my household is going to do this. And I was just like, guys, why is nobody pushing back and saying, okay, but where is the actual evidence? Like, you can't just you can't take a number like 23 or 24 and say, well, 2 plus 3 equals 5, so therefore this is X, Y, and Z. Like, that's not how facts work. You can literally make anything say what you want it to say when you start doing things like that. That is not how we exercise our brains. The Bible says we're to love the Lord with all our heart, soul, strength, and mind, but yet not everybody, I shouldn't say that, so forgive me, but it seems like a lot of people want to love the Lord with everything except their minds, and they'll just throw that out the window because, oh, that sounds good to me, so I'm going to go with it. Now, why am I ranting about this? Let's come over here to the screen. And I just recently put a dual monitor system back up here, so I'm a little shaky with it. Let's come back over here. So this is, of course, metanoionmedia.substack.com. This is our Substack page. This is where you will find our articles, you will find our videos, our podcasts. You can find everything here. That way, if we were ever to get banned for anything and from everything, you would have a place to put us. Now, the odds are is that you're listening to this podcast audio only, either on Spreaker or on YouTube. Normally, the video is available on our Substack page, and it is a subscriber-only thing. And it's just a way that we normally just say, hey, thank you for those of you who feel like you want to support what we're doing here. Here's a little extra something for you guys, because we make everything available for anybody. We just go the extra mile for those as a way to say thank you. However, you will now be able to find the videos of 33.3 News on Rumble, because we really like what Rumble's doing. So you'll be able to find it there for free. So guys, go over and subscribe to our Rumble page, Course Correction Radio. Now, let's get into this. Now, if you look at this article, this is exactly what we talked about on the last show with the prayer hands emoji, right? And I gotta say, this is why I'm bothered, guys. Because I have seen so many people just take this and be like, oh, I didn't know that was pagan. And they were like, and, you know, people are giving me credit like I didn't know it was pagan until, and look, hey, I appreciate that you guys feel like that I am edifying your life. There's only one problem. Some of you, not all of you, but some of you literally heard what you wanted and ran with it. Because I never said this was pagan, first of all. I even admit in this article, and you can go back and listen to last time's podcast, I admit that I made this up. Because the whole point was I wanted to prove that people take things they like to hear, it sounds good to them, and they run with it without checking the facts. That really bothers me. Because the whole point of this was for that not to happen. Look, I'm not here to ridicule anybody because these things happen. Sometimes we just only get a piece of it and we go with it. We're human. We make mistakes. I'll even admit that maybe I should have explained this better. So I'm not going to put all of this on you guys because, you know, I'm the one that decided to do this way for whatever reason. I think it proved my point. Don't get me wrong. It did. I'm not too upset because it literally proved my point. I just didn't want it. I was hoping that it wouldn't. And look, like I said, I'm not here to ridicule anybody. I'm not here to say you guys, you know, and just like rag on you. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying this is an encouragement. We should do better. We can do better, and we're going to do better. I know this. But look at what the article says right here. Sounds somewhat plausible, right? The problem is I took two small facts. I know there's only two pieces of truth in this. The Namaste hand pose is this. That's what they do. They put their hands together. They say Namaste. And the fact that you can Google Namaste emoji and come up with a bunch of other information. And you can, if you Google Namaste emoji, it's these prayer hands, right? But literally everything else I put in there to suit my agenda. Because I wanted to say, hey, I think this is pagan. So I literally cherry-picked information, made up stuff, put it in there to suit my agenda. I even took scripture out of context to do it and admitted that I took it out of context. I took it out of context and slid it into my argument to drive the point home. This was the whole point of this. The whole point of that show was to show you guys, start paying attention to who you're listening to, because the fact of the matter is that some truthers and some people in the Torah community are literally hoodwinking you. They're giving a bunch of pseudo intellectual BS, and they're cherry-picking slight little facts that they can put in there because it sounds good. And we have to do better. And you'll see what I mean by this when we get into some of the other things we're going to talk about. Because the fact of the matter is that we are in a spiritual war, and our enemy wants to deceive us. Jesus said if it were possible, he will deceive even the elect will be deceived, right? Matthew 24. We've got to do better. We have got to start fact-checking the people we're listening to. Look, guys, I don't want you to believe anything I say for this very reason right here. Because there's a lot of influence that people can have on the internet, and unfortunately, because we all lead busy lives, you know, a lot of times and look, I'm guilty of this myself. That's why I say we can do better, because I'm right in this with you. None of us are above the other. We're all in this together. We're all fighting this uphill battle, right? So, look, I'm right in the trenches with you. I'm trying to get out of them, move my way upward just like you guys are. But here's what we have to do. We have to take the things that we hear as we listen throughout our day, and we have to fact check them to make sure they are, in fact, accurate. And hey, sometimes that's easier said than done, because history and things like that, they are constantly rewritten, right? I was just listening to Brett Cooper earlier today on Daily Wire, and she was talking about some transgender stuff and how they're literally changing the science and the facts every day to suit their agenda. And so if they're doing it, why would the enemy not put people in the camp of the Lord to do that as well? And this argument proved that it can be easily done. Here's the only difference is I don't want to do that to you guys. I'm not in the business of hoodwinking you. I'm in the business of edifying the body. And you can't even, and I don't mean business like business. You guys know what I mean. I mean, this is what I do. I'm here to edify you, and sometimes that's painful for all of us. We've got to do better. Look, this is it. The fact of the matter is, another story exists to describe the origin of prayer hands. This is the first story that I came across, and ironically, when studying Namaste, one of the articles I read verified this. Because I did read a thing about yoga that says these very things. Like, it literally quotes these. I should have put it in here, and I didn't. But joined hands came to symbolize submission. In ancient Rome, a captured soldier could avoid immediate death by joining the hands together, just as waving a white flag today. The message was clear: I surrender. Right? This is why. Now, look, if you read this entire article, and I encourage each and every one of you, read the article. This quote, when I went back and did my research, this quote originally came from a Catholic blog. So you can't take this as truth either, because the fact of the matter is the Catholics are known to have a little bit of revisionist history as well. All I wanted to point out in this article was the simple fact that if you do not have a clear story of where something comes from, if you personally feel like the prayer hands are something you can't do, throw them out by all means. But all I'm saying is fact check it, pray, let your conviction after going to the Father through the power of the Holy Spirit guide you. Don't let me or anybody else hoodwink you into believing something. Because the fact of the matter is that is being done. And all I'm saying, the other thing I wanted to point out was because this all started with a private group that I was in on Facebook, started banning emojis for their group based on absolutely no evidence. The evidence at best was circumstantial. And let me just go ahead and tell you, if you start banning stuff and saying we can't do this and you're not going according to what the Bible says don't add or take away, right? And that's not just in the book of Revelation. That's in the book of Deuteronomy as well. See, that's what the Pharisees did. And that was my point. That's why I had to leave this group that I was in. I was like, you guys are basically acting like Pharisees. And then other people are getting censored and kicked out of that group for maybe the tact was off, but the intentions were right. They were trying to expose the evil and stupidity that is being done in the world. But because the video was a little graphic, no warning, this person was kicked out of the group. That is not okay, in my opinion. And I want absolutely nothing to do with this group or these people anymore. Absolutely not. And look, not everybody in there is a bad apple. I'm talking about the leaders of the group, the ones that started. I want nothing to do with them anymore. Nor will I have anything to do with them anymore. So that's just the fact of the matter. So I really wanted to make sure that this problem got addressed, because this has literally been bothering my conscience, is the fact that, I'm glad that people feel blessed by what I put out, but the problem was this was a false blessing, because in this article, I admit, and you can go back and listen to the podcast because people say, well, maybe you changed the article later to suit your agenda. Yeah, people can do that too, so you need to keep an eye out for that, which you can use like the Wayback Engine and things like that to make sure. I haven't touched this article, and you can go back and listen to the podcast because I admit in that I made it up. I just want to encourage all of us to do a little better when we're listening to some of the things that we are, in fact, listening to. We can all do better. Every single one of us can do better. Myself included. Like I said, I probably could have made a way to make this clearer. I'm not entirely sure that would have been the right thing to do because, like I said, it proved the point I wanted. It just, I don't know. I don't want to lead anybody astray. That's why I'm bothered. Even though I knew there was the possibility that I could do it, by making it kind of subtle. It was a risk I took, and you know what? I let myself down ultimately. So there's that. I'm tired of beating this dead horse. Let's move on. I'm so sick of the emoji thing, to be honest. All right. So let's come over here and there we go. We're going to come over here. So this is an article from metanoiamedia.substack.com again. This is once again our blog post on our Metanoia mirror. So like if you were to come here, I'll just show you guys the layout of the Substack. If it'll work. There we go. All right. So you can come to our page, Metanoia Media, and we've got the Daily Show, which is no longer going, but you can listen to all our Daily Show stuff. We have over here, if my mouse will start to work, we have the Metanoia Mirror, 33.3 News, Likened Unto Moses, and TN Scripture with Trey and Sarah. But what I want to do is I want to bring you to this article that we just released. As this is recording, I just wrote this article last night. Beast Grooming. Panera Bread in St. Louis to test Amazon palm scanning. Now, I have watched absolutely no information on this, but I was scrolling through Rumble and saw Rick Wiles and True News had done an entire episode about Panera Bread and the Mark of the Beast. I was like, what the heck are they talking about? I don't have time to listen. Let me just type it in. So I went and did a little bit of research. And here is this picture, of course, is an AI art depiction of an RFID chip. I need to edit that. RFID chip going into the right hand. By the way, guys, I am extremely, I have a tendency to rush through these, so I don't always proofread them. Normally, I try to get my wife to proofread them, but she was already asleep at this point. So, this is what it says. Recently, news broke from CNBC, and you can, guys, I try to hyperlink my stuff. That way you can fact check me on it. Because I'm not in the business of telling you what to think. I'm just in the business of getting you the stuff that I'm looking at so you can research it for yourself. All right, so as you see, news broke recently. This was March 22nd. As I am recording this, it is March 25th, so this is very recent. Recently, news broke from CNBC that Panera Bread, a restaurant chain known for its bread, will be testing Amazon palm scanning tech in 2 of its St. Louis locations. Now, as you can see, we've got this handy button because we would really appreciate it if you would subscribe for our page. It's a free subscription. If you feel so led, there is also an upgraded monthly subscription if you feel like it. There's nothing that says you have to, though. We would really appreciate your free subscription and your prayers. That goes farther than absolutely anything. Now back to the article. An article from TechCrunch, which also we have hyperlinked for you, so that way you may do your own research. An article from TechCrunch points out that the system was designed to store biometric data with a customer's account info to then suggest a more personalized product recommendation, which would sound really great. Hey, come scan your palm over here because now we can tailor make everything to your biometric data. It's put all in this secure system. We can now tailor make product recommendations for you Cut out the middleman. You don't have to wonder what you might like anymore. We'll get you what you like. Makes life you're so busy, life is so convenient. Just come and do this, right? All right. Now, another article from Business Insider, which once again, we have hyperlinked for you. An article from Business Insider pointed out that this exact purpose would be utilized for Panera's reward program. Now, when looking from a business standpoint, in a logical sense, this move wouldn't seem out of the ordinary or nefarious in any way. However, with the increased talk of central bank digital currency and the potential for tight-knit government control of all economic corners, which, by the way, experts are saying the type of CBDC that the United States is looking into would absolutely do that. It would literally put a control grid on the entire economy. So, one should pay close attention to stories like this when we claim to have a biblical mindset. Now, let's read these verses. I've got these verses in here. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And that no man make buy or sell, save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So see, this is why I want to talk about it. Because when you look at the fact that no man might buy or sell, now there is without a doubt an economic, and look, most of you guys know this, Dan and Rob Blackwell just talked about this on the Truth Radio Show Rumble channel the other night. I think they were also live streaming on YouTube, but they just talked about the beast system and the economic ties into that with the CBDC. So I know all of you are probably familiar with this, but I have to stress this. There is an economic tied to the beast system. I think this is the part that gets beat like a dead horse, in my opinion. Many biblical commentators focus on these verses, which no doubt fit the topic covered in this post. However, many do not focus on these verses. Revelation chapter 13, verse 8, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of the life or the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So Revelation chapter 13, verse 8, for those of you who may not be familiar, there are two beasts that are talked about in Revelation chapter 13. Verses 1 through 10 is about the first beast that comes out of the sea. This is who this verse will be talking about. And then there's verses 11 through, I want to say, 18 or 20. Those are about the second beast, the false prophet, who comes from the earth. Now, this is Revelation chapter 8:15. So the first one was talking about the first beast. This is in reference to the second beast, the false prophet. And he, the false prophet, had the power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So not only will it be an economic issue that you're going to be talking about, it's also going to be a capital offense to not participate in this beast system. And so this is why I'm talking about, guys. Let's come over here. I know I've got it around here somewhere because I was just reading it earlier. You know what? I'll just use my word study New Testament right here. Oh, got to be careful not to bump the camera. All right. So look, let's go over here. Matthew 24. One of my absolute favorite chapters on this, my absolute favorite chapters in the Bible. And if you listen to our old original podcast back when I was recording them from my cell phone, you'll notice that we reference this passage a lot because it's so important. When you talk about being a follower of Christ, then you should really follow Christ and do things according to what Christ says. But yet there are some Christians who literally will contradict the words of Christ when it comes to their end-time beliefs. But this is what Jesus says in Matthew 24. And this is how he starts it off. There's verse chapter 3, Matthew chapter 24, verse 3, and he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us when these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world. Now, Jesus could have said, well, this is going to be the sign, right? But no. What does Jesus say? Verse 4, and Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. Before he even started talking about the end of the world and the signs of his coming, the first thing Jesus says is, take heed that no man deceive you. So that's why I started this show out the way I did. Guys, we have to do better, because deception is going to be what makes or breaks people before the end times come. So let's go on. What does he say? For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, and see that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. That's why I say it's very important, even before the signs of the end come, because we're just talking about the wars and rumors of wars. These are birth pangs, right? These are contractions, if you will. Contractions, for those of you who either have bore children yourself, you would know this a lot better than I, or, for those of you husbands who were, heavily involved in making sure that everything went smoothly for your wife during pregnancy, because, pregnancy, it takes two, even though the wife's carrying it, the husband, it's our job to be there for them, right? Because this is a hard process. That contractions, especially the Braxton Hicks contractions, they start very early in the pregnancy, right? But as you get closer to the birth, they start ramping up, and these things become a lot worse, a lot more frequent, and then hey, it's actually starting now. Deception's going to come before all of that. That was the first thing he said. So look, so I'm trying to find So, because this is what it says. This is verse 24. So let's go to verse 23. For if any man say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Now he's talking about false Christs and false prophets. So the ultimate version of the false Christ and the false prophet would be the beasts of Revelation chapter 13. Now notice what he says. If it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Now, in my opinion, and I believe this is based off of what Jesus says, because after the tribulation of those days, verse 29, shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven be shaken, and then shall appear the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, and then shall the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with power and great glory. One of the ways I believe that people are being deceived is, hey, you're going to be out of here, you're going to be zapped up in a pre-tribulation rapture before the mark of the beast even comes. Now, I could pull out, it's behind my laptop set up right now, but back here, I have the Apostolic Fathers. The Apostolic Fathers make it very clear in the Didache that the Antichrist will be the final test before the resurrection. I also have right here, this is my copy of Volume 1 of the Ante-Nicene Church Fathers. So we got the Apostolic Fathers, Ante-Nicene Church Fathers, and Irenaeus, who was discipled by Polycarp, who was discipled by John, makes it very clear that Christians will not be partaking in the resurrection, that instant change, that harpazo, that snatching away, that will not happen until after the Antichrist has already risen to power. This is so important because people need to realize that they're being groomed for the beast right now. Now, you can think this is a big deal. You can think it's not a big deal. This is a free country. Feel free to do whatever the heck you want. My job as a watchman, that's why this is called the Watchman Report. My job is just to sound the alarm and say, hey, you might want to check this out. I think they're grooming you for something. I think they're trying to get you ready for a system that I believe, based on the evidence, looks a lot like the system that was warned about in the book of Revelation. But just remember this. No matter how the ultimate beast system manifests, it will for sure appear with some form of demonic worship. In the meantime, it never hurts to look at the ways they are grooming us for this system. Now, whether you think it's going to be a chip or whether you think it's going to be that, oh goodness, what do they call that stuff? The little dot thing. See, because people look at that, they think, no, that's a tattoo. Some people think it's the barcode. But those little dots, they kind of are a mixture of all of those. So it literally goes in. The quantum dots, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, thanks for broadcasting it. Sorry, the little one just came in here and said she had to go to the bathroom. I don't know if you guys heard her. She's something else. But look, it doesn't matter what you think it is, because the ultimate thing is it's not going to be a barcode. It's not going to be an RFID chip. It's not going to be anything if there is not a form of worship that goes with it. And that's why I highly recommend this book right here. This is The Luciferian Transmutation, The Global Luciferian Mass and What It Means to You by David and Donna Carrico. I kid you not. I got this book from them when I went to visit them up in Indiana. David was gracious enough to give me a bunch of books, and I kid you not, I literally devoured this book before we even got home. Granted, it was an 11-hour drive, but this book was completely devoured. And I'm a slow reader. I read super slow, but I literally retain almost every bit of information that I read. So I highly recommend you read this, because what this book lays out is that there is a form of... Hey, Lydia, can you close that door, please? Thank you. There is a form of worship that's going to look very similar to Catholicism, and he's even hijacked Catholicism. And it's going to take the Mass, which I believe is a false Mass anyway. I believe the Catholic Mass of transubstantiation is absolutely false. This book does a great job of showing why it is absolutely false. But we're not talking about transubstantiation. We're talking about transmutation. For any of you guys who may have watched things like Full Metal Alchemist or are familiar with the concept of alchemy, transmutation is, of course, changing something from one substance to another. In alchemy, if you were to read just the exoteric version of alchemy, it's changing base metals to gold, right? Now, once you get into esoteric alchemy, you find out that it's not actually base metals to gold, because that's impossible, but it's actually changing the human soul to divine. And this is a way that a lot of people believe, these Luciferians, and this is documented, their writings, gives quotes, page numbers, like this book comes with receipts, shows that they believe you do that by actually magically transmutating the bread and the cup into actual flesh and blood. So you can get this at FOJCradio.com. I highly encourage every single one of you, if you can, to read this. Like I said, do your own research. This is a great jumping off point to learn about it. This is where, if you like, so one of our most popular shows that we've done is our Ancient Alchemy show, where we go through and we show the symbolism of the Delta variant, the Omicron variant, the metaverse, like Facebook changing to Meta, all at the same time. All of those symbols have to do with alchemy, actually. Delta, Omicron, the little infinity symbol that Meta uses, they all have to do with the Philosopher's Stone. We dealt with that in that episode. We bring receipts in that episode. We show, we even tied it into like some of the stuff that was talked about in the Conan the Barbarian books, the Ouroboros, things like this. It's a really interesting show. Whether you actually buy it or not, that's entirely up to you. You can go make your own conclusions. But it was because of books like this that we were able to dig further into stuff like that. So I highly encourage each and every one of you guys to do that as well. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break real quick. My throat's starting to get a little dry, and we're going to come back. Let's see. We've been doing it for about 30 minutes right now. We're going to come back. I just want to talk about one more story because I'm sure many of you saw, if you're keeping up with the news, that recently the CEO of TikTok, I believe it was, testified before Congress, and there's people pointing out really good facts. As a matter of fact, the majority of the stuff we're going to look at is actually going to come from the show notes of a show that Steven Crowder did, because they just do a great job of documenting where their research comes from. And they are of the same opinion that I am, is that, people need to do the research for themselves and not just listen to people. So we're going to use that. We're going to piggyback off of that. And but we're not going to talk about everything there. You guys can go check it out for yourself. I'm not interested in rehashing things. There's just a few points that I found interesting while listening to it that I believe really applies to the Christian walk, and why, in my opinion, as a Christian, maybe you shouldn't have TikTok to begin with. I don't have it. It's completely banned in my house. Nobody is on TikTok. I used to be on TikTok, and then it literally was a detriment to my life. And I'm going to show you why I believe that is. But we're going to take a quick break. I don't have any videos or anything, so I don't have any of my old stuff that we used to do on the show. Like you guys can see, I'm not even using a lower third or anything. I just haven't been able to fix up anything after my computer exploded, which was nuts. I haven't been able to put anything on the laptop because, it's the busy season for the business I'm in. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mute the microphone. I'm going to play some background music, and I will be right back very, very, very shortly. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, guys. So if you're like me, you're traveling a lot. Hey, Trey here with Course Correction Radio, and my question to you is, if you're traveling a lot, why are you not listening to the Shake and Wake Radio Network on shakeandwakeradio.com? On Shake and Wake Radio, you will find great shows such as Through the Black with Thomas Dunn, The Midnight Ride with John Pounders and David Carrico, The Cutting Edge Truth Radio Show, and so much more. You can even catch yours truly on Monday nights after the Jim Duke Perspective right there on shakeandwakeradio.com. dragon, the Antichrist. These topics have stirred debate within the body of Christ for centuries. Is the beast a system? Is the Antichrist one man? Is it many? Is it a position? The Pope, essentially, the first thing that we need to realize is that there are actually two beasts referred to in Revelation 13, and the one we want to focus on now is the one who causes people to take a mark, because that is the one that is so highly contentious. That is the one that has the number and the name, right? So, first we need to realize that that is actually the second beast of Revelation 13, called the false prophet. And if people could realize that, they could actually center in onto the truth of what is going on here and not be misled by all these crazy groups out here saying these different things. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save that he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. All right. Sorry about that, guys. So, I forgot I actually had sounds on the board that could actually, at least not leave you there sitting in silence. So, by the way, that was the very first video. What you just heard last was literally the very first video we ever posted to Rumble. And it was a short little thing. It was supposed to be a series of videos, and they kind of got away from me. But, and I really need to do the second part to that, because, what is the number of the beast mean? And I've talked about it before, but, once again, another deception. People are literally trying to look for all this mystical meaning to the number of the beast. It literally just, and you can read this in Irenaeus, it literally just represents the total apostasy of 6,000 years of human depravity summed up in one man. That is what the number 666 means. All right, so let's get into the second half of this show, because, as I'm sure many of you have heard, and probably, I'm sure some of you have even seen, the CEO of TikTok went and testified before Congress, which, was probably, the parts I saw seemed like nothing but, politicians doing what they do. They grandstand, and then they don't ever actually get anything done. My prayer is that they will actually ban TikTok, because it is spyware. It's nothing but degeneracy. It literally is, the algorithm, the way it works in the United States, is it literally encourages sin and depravity, and it's just wrong. Look, I don't like Twitter for the same reason. Twitter, in my opinion, when it comes to human depravity and sin and things like that, has actually gotten worse under the leadership of Elon Musk. But that's just my opinion. I don't like. Look, I rarely do I get on social media anyway, but it's just, I don't know. But look, there are potentially harmful things for, there are harmful things that TikTok can do, not like just from a sin standpoint. I think that's the most important, is the degeneracy of it. But so for instance, let's come over here and take a look at this. This is a video that has to do with, some of the things happening with Gen Z. Oh, it's this way. Whoops. Here we go.
We haven't talked about what's happening to Gen Z. We haven't talked about what's happening to kids. I talked about them before in a sort of negative way, like Gen Z shows up on campus, and then all of a sudden there are all these problems. But again, I don't get angry. I'm not moralistic. We have to understand what's happening to Gen Z. So I just want to talk, if I can just talk a little about that.
And could you also define Gen Z?
Yeah.
And then please continue.
So millennials are those who were born in 1982, and we used to think that it would go to maybe 2000. But it turns out that kids who were born in 1996 and later are different from those born, say, 1994 and earlier. I mean, it's a surprisingly sharp cut, equivalent to what we find with birth year 1946. The post-war world really was different to grow up in. And I believe, so I'm drawing on work by Jean Twenge, but I've also added, she and I are working together, and I've added a lot. What happened is that if you were born in, say, 1990, you didn't get an iPhone until maybe around 2009 is when teenagers started getting it. So if you're born in 1990, you didn't get an iPhone, a smartphone, until you were 20. And you didn't get on social media. You might have been on Facebook partly, but you don't live on social media until you have your own smartphone. Whereas if you're born in 1997, you are 13 in 2010 when you might get your first smartphone. And you might get on Instagram in 2012 when huge numbers did. So I believe Gen Z is defined by the fact that they got smartphones and social media during early puberty. There's a lot of research pointing to early puberty, around 11 to 13 for girls, 12 to 15 for boys. What's coming into your brain then is really important because your frontal cortex is wiring itself up. So when human beings are raised without much independence, but yes, with a phone, and they spend their childhood just interacting with a screen, and especially social media, I believe it messes up cortical development. The girls in particular, the rates of anxiety and depression are up much more than 100% since 2010. The rate of self-harm, hospitalizations for self-harm, is nearly tripled for preteen girls. So Gen Z is in big, big trouble. They're hurting, they're fragile, they're not doing well in the workplace. Managers are finding them very hard to work with. So we have a generation that's running off the rails. And this is not a moralistic thing like, oh, those kids these days. This is a compassionate thing. Like, these are our children. Like, my kids are 13 and 16. Everyone either has kids or has nieces and nephews. So this is, I think, the greatest emergency we face, the greatest health emergency. I think for kids, this is much, much bigger than COVID. COVID was a big deal for old people. It wasn't a big deal for children in terms of the risk. But this is, a doubling, more than doubling of suicide rates for kids since 2010. So that's what I'm working on now.
What decisions have you made?
All right. So I think that just that short clip right there does a great job of pointing out, especially the generation under mine, because I'm a millennial, and then you have Gen Z under me. I remember as a kid, cell phones were in their infancy. I remember when my mom got the Motorola that you had to pull up the antenna and then flip down the bottom, and that was like a flip phone. And then I remember her getting a full flip phone after that. We thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And I saw the technology evolve from there. I mean, apparently when I was like a really young kid, my grandfather, who is a certified public accountant, had a car phone, and that was just cool. He was literally the only person I knew that had one. My dad had one of those, like one of those phones in the briefcase, like Fraser Crane had on Cheers. So I've seen the technology evolve in my lifetime. Now, imagine being the generation under that, where you come up and all of this technology is literally just in your face. Your entire life is run by algorithms. You're going to do exactly what the algorithm tells you to do. I thought that was an interesting tidbit when you look into all this, because now take that, imagine that. We have an entire generation whose life literally involves around the fact that I hate to sound hyperbolic, because it's not even all of them, but there's a good number of kids who ultimately don't exercise as much free will as the generations before them, because their entire life is dictated by algorithms. They only see what Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, they only see when they go on here. This is what they see. Their entire worldview is influenced by a small screen and what that screen tells them to do, right? That's absolutely terrifying to me. So then you take that and imagine you get the degeneracy that is the TikTok algorithm. Now it can turn into a morality issue, but it goes even farther than that. So I just talked about the free will thing. I want to go over here. This is an article from the Daily Mail. I absolutely hate the way their website is laid out too, just to, throw that in there. All right, so IQ scores in the U.S. have dropped for the first time in nearly 100 years, studies suggest. So is tech making us dim? Here's the talking points of it. IQ points in the U.S. have declined between 2006 and 2018, scientists found. The biggest drop was people aged 18 to 22 and those who are less well educated. Other countries have shown similar findings. So IQ scores, and they dropped, as we've talked about, have dropped in the first time in 100 years. The researchers set out to find evidence that evidence that each generation is smarter than the previous, known as the Flynn effect, but they found out the opposite in this case. So scientists from the University of Oregon and Northwestern have looked at nearly 400,000 online IQ tests done between 2006 and 2018. While they did not give the exact drop, they said the biggest decrease was in people aged 18 to 22, which, by the way, would be the, Gen Z millennial age, I think. So, wait, let's see, 96. Yeah, so, dude, it would be Gen Z. The study was conducted before the pandemic, meaning disruptions to education caused by lockdowns might have worsened it further. Because once again, everybody went into screens for that time, right? All right, let's continue reading. And I apologize for those of you who are watching on Rumble with all the buffering. I got to get a new graphics card for this computer. With all these windows open, running cameras, because I'm not even using my secondary camera, but it is linked up here. Plus, my camera is Wi-Fi connected right now, so that is part of it. So I apologize. We're looking to upgrade everything in the future, so just bear with us. But right now, we want to make sure that you guys are getting the information. And believe it or not, I have had people just absolutely fume because I will post audio-only content sometimes. So, not that I care, but I figured, hey, if people, I'm taking myself out of the equation. The only reason people aren't getting blessed is because they don't want a blessing, ultimately. So yeah, just bear with us. We're going to get everything straightened out here in the future. So, all right. No, matter of fact, let me refresh my connection real quick because I am overloading my internet right now. So basically, what you guys don't need to see me, what you need to see right now is the article. So look, this is what happened. So some experts argued that leaps in technology may have access to more information than ever, which has increased the opportunities for learning and make us smarter. The study was published in the journal Intelligence. Some skills, such as 3D spatial reasoning tests, showed us an uptick from 2011 to 2018, but skills like verbal reasoning, visual problem solving, and numerical series tests have all gone down. Of course they have. And a lot of it is just because of... this is just my personal opinion. I think hands-on learning is a big part of that. But other studies over the years have demonstrated that the Flynn effect may already be in reverse outside of the U.S. A study in Finland found that IQs had dropped by 2 points between 1997 and 2009. In France, IQ scores decreased by 3.8 IQ points from 1999 to 2009. And other places, including the UK, Norway, Denmark, and Australia, have discovered similar findings. So look, here is the big point that I think. when you look at this, here's what ultimately I believe is going on. And give me just a second. Ultimately, this is what's happening. What's the wrong one? So here's exactly what's happening here. Really and truly, when you lower the people's IQ and you lower their ability to think for themselves, because kids are not taught to think for themselves anymore. What they are taught is they are taught what to think, when to think it, and how much of that they can do before their brain capacity just completely gives up. People are easier to control. And when the beast system comes in, I absolutely believe everything we're talking about today, I believe, plays a part in the coming beast system. People will be easier to control. These people then, you can therefore then do the things that is happening with palm technology, things like that, because people can't think for themselves. They'll just go along with it, right? There's this experiment they did. I don't even remember how long ago this was. But here's what happened in the experiment. Basically, people took the experiment, right? And they took this experiment and this lady, she went in and all these people were sitting down. Every time a bell would ring, there were of course the control group, the paid actors. They would, every time the bell rang, they would stand up, and she just looked around like everything was going crazy at first. But what they found in the study was that it was kind of a herd mentality thing. The woman, they would literally bring different people in and see how long it would take them to start going with the flow. And of course, these people would just eventually start standing up every time the bell would ring because they don't want to seem like the odd man out, right? It was basically a fear-based control system. And that is exactly, I believe that feeds into all of this. I believe, you do things, people will go with the crowd, just the go along, get along mentality. So there's only one other part of this that I want us to talk about. And let me come over here and find it. All right. So this is an article or something from WAF.com. How is TikTok affecting your brain and mental health? This is Dr. David Burhart, clinical mental health counselor in Huntsville, and he explains. So let's check this out. By the way, WAF is WAFF 48. This is a news. All right. So there is an article that you can read, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this so you can listen to it. Or if you're watching on Rumble, you'll be able to watch it. If you're listening on YouTube, hey, why don't you just head on over to Rumble? It's available there. Why not just watch it on a platform that cares about the fact that you should be able to take in content that you think is right for you and not have YouTube dictate it for you? And it's buffering. I need to get myself some little elevator music that I can play while it's buffering. That would be really funny.
To get to Brandon, thank you.
There we go.
Morning, we're on your side, warning you about.
Oh, geez, this sucks. And by the way, it's not an internet problem because I'm straight wired into the internet. There's absolutely no Wi-Fi going on here.
The potential harmful effects of a popular social media app, talking about TikTok.
Yeah, the video platform under investigation by a number of states to determine its influence on younger users' mental health.
You might be wondering, so how does a video app have a real-world impact on someone's mental health? Kelly Miller was able to sit down with an expert to get you some answers. Kelly, good morning.
Trent, Haley, good morning. Exactly. So many people out there may be wondering, what's so bad about TikTok? The 20 or 30-second videos make people laugh and sometimes even teach you how to cook. But there's so much more to the app app and how it really affects our brains. I spoke to Dr. David Barnhart, who works with kids and adults at Behavioral Sciences of Alabama. He says all social media platforms can impact how a person views themselves. But with TikTok, users are exposed to dozens of videos within minutes, activating the reward pathway in the brain. As a result, young users can become addicted to the app and may seek constant stimulation. In addition, Barnhart says young users are often exposed to videos that fuel body dissatisfaction, appearance-related anxiety, exercise addiction, and more.
They begin to get this view of themselves in comparison to other people. And the more of that we see, the more distorted our view of what it's like to be the best, to be good. We don't have an awareness of what we're doing to our own brains.
And so what is the solution here, and how can parents help their kids? In the next half hour of news, I'll share some tips from Dr. Barnhart and explain what he thinks could happen if we don't take action now. Haley.
All right. So, I mean, there you have it. Like, there's like, I mean, and I think the other guy talked about it, the uptick in anxiety and things like that, especially with generations like Gen Z, right? So there's definitely physical harm, but I'm going to give you a reason that as a Bible believer, why this should not even faze you whatsoever. Really and truly. So check this out. This is Philippians chapter 4. Philippians chapter 4, and this is what it says. We're going to start in verse 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your moderation be known unto all men. The Lord is at hand. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are good, of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Those things which ye have both learned, received, and heard, and seen in me, do, and the God of peace shall be with you. So look, this is basically, I think, when you look at things like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and all these things that are fueling degeneracy and sin and things like that, and look, here's the thing about it is, I'm not telling you need to get rid of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, yada, yada. But I think that, moderation, right? Let your moderation be known to all men. I think that when we are looking at things like this, you have to make each individual decision. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you are a person that has struggled with a man, especially, if you've struggled with, provocative things like that, and your eyes can be easily turned, absolutely, you need to get rid of these apps without a question. You don't stick an alcoholic near a bar, right? So you shouldn't stick somebody that has a lust problem near places where they can lust. Because what does the Bible say? It says to focus on these things that are pure, lovely, honest, and things like that. And the fact of the matter is that these algorithms, they don't drive that. They're going to push it in your face, and you absolutely better believe that Satan is going. This is a entity that has been around for thousands and thousands of years. His study of body language is absolutely just expert level. He's going to know exactly what pushes your buttons, and he's going to make sure that, those algorithms are giving you exactly what does push your buttons. And if you are in a place where you struggle, you should absolutely get rid of these things. But, anybody, I think, we need to cut these things down to cut these things down to an absolute minimum anyway, because the reality is that as we get addicted to these things, it's taking away time that we could be spending in prayer and meditation. And when we're not doing these things and we're having these sins of omission, the Puritan writings have made it very clear that it's these sins of omission, when we're not reading our Bible, we're not praying, we're not meditating on God's word, that make people fall into apostasy, and these things are going to feed right into that. So these are the things that I just wanted to talk about on today's episode, because I believe literally every topic that we have covered today is, without a doubt, going to play a part into the coming beast system. But hey, let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Please make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the Rumble channel, or I guess if you're on Rumble, make sure you hit the Rumble button. That way we can push this out to as many people as possible and spread the truth of God's word. Once again, thank you so much for your prayers. They are absolutely life-changing. We could not do any of this without your prayers. Those of you who are either subscribed to our Substack or have been kind enough to send us gifts in the mail, thank you so much. Your support means absolutely everything to us. And once again, we ask for your prayers as well. But we just want to thank you guys for your prayers and for any way that you have supported us. It has not gone unnoticed. And we are literally able to do these things. Guys, if it wasn't for you guys, look, we literally had a friend that donated the laptop that I am using after my computer exploded. So we just, it's things like that. Literally, it's people that, are, believe in what we do. You guys are what make the difference. We could not do any of this without you guys. The headphones that I'm using were literally funded through listeners sending gifts. This microphone, the cord went bad, bought a new one. This is all funded by you guys. So thank you. Your prayers, even if you're not sending money, your prayers are what are making a difference. So I don't want anybody to think that they have to, but I just want to say, for those of you that do, thank you so much. For those of you who are praying, please, thank you, and please don't ever stop. The minute you stop praying is the minute that, defeat will happen. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time on 33.3 News. Y'all take care.
Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
When we are successful, and we will be.
Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before of old.